We're two best friends.
Two mediums that live in a virtual dream house.
Have our podcast taped and find out what happens when spirits get real.
Real funny. By the way, if you don't like cuss words, Dana, what do we rate it?
We're rated M for mediumship or Matt's immature.
I thought it was Matt is awesome, but whatever. Enjoy this episode.
This is I'm a Medium.
Ask me how.
I'm a medium, ask me how.
Matthew Tao.
Dana Willie. Oh my god, hi.
Oh
Oh yeah, it's a new year. New year, new me.
yeah. Do you feel like a whole different vibe coming into 2024?
I do. Well, it couldn't be that I got my Cricut out and have completely vinyled my walls, but it's fine.
It's fine. Is it mental illness or is it crafting? We'll never know.
Clinical depression or critical cricket. We'll never know. But, well, what was a funny thing is I like to just make this my childhood dream, this room, my childhood dream. So if you watched our podcast for a really long time, you've seen it like evolve, or what I like to say, mutate.
Yeah. Much like our logo, but yes.
Much like our logo, into this, Barbie fantasy that I'm living in. But
Some would call it a Barbie dream house.
It's a nightmare house.
No. I'm just waiting for
I'm Barbie Kruger, bitch.
No, I'm waiting for the goth phase to come in.
That'll never happen.
So the plan with everything Matt does is he like overdoes it, and then he starts taking things away. Like you'll notice, like if you've been watching these YouTube videos or whatever, he had gold curtains behind him for a little while.
I was gonna put those up.
You were gonna put him back up? Oh, Matthew.
Yeah, for New Year's.
But New Year's is over.
Yeah, well, that's why they're not up.
But like he had them up for a while, and then he was like, I took them down, Dana. It was too busy. Now I want you to just take that in as you look into his background. That was too much.
Hold on,
That was a bridge too far.
Ready? I've been away from. But I need to tell them, you did get me an amazing Christmas gift.
Yes, I did.
Yes. Can you tell the story about this Christmas gift before I reveal it?
Yes. I'm not going to dox the store because it sounds whatever, but it was a high-end store that my husband and I were in searching for my husband's Christmas present. Mm-hmm. And I found the most unlikely Christmas gift for Matthew Tao in this store. And there's this lady, and she was talking to the other like people that worked at this store, and they were laughing over this pink thing she was holding. And I, it's pink. So I'm like looking over, and she pulls this thing out, and I was like, oh, it looks like Barbie even. And my interest is piqued even more because I have to buy something for my best friend, right? And she opens it a little more. And I'm not going to tell you what it says because we're going to do the big reveal here in a second. And I was like, oh, I said, that's perfect. Where did you get that from? And she said, online at Urban Outfitters, but I'm going to return it because it just didn't work out in my room. But you have to buy it online. And I was like, I don't have time for that. But can I Venmo you right now for that rug? And she's like, are you serious? And I was like, yeah. So in this high-end store, everybody is looking upon these two people buying this pink rug that looks like a Barbie rug, going over this like $20 some odd Venmo, transaction to get Matthew Tao part of his Christmas gift.
But it was perfect. Okay, you ready for the reveal?
Yeah. Well, and then I showed my husband he's like, what did you buy for Matt? And I opened it up and I showed him, and he's like, oh my God, he's going to love that.
It looked like you were buying drugs.
And then I sent it to you, and my husband was on FaceTime when you opened it, and you enjoyed it.
You ready?
Mm-hmm.
This is what I give. This is what I give about 2024.
And if you guys are listening to the podcast and you can't see, it's the Barbie font. It looks like the Barbie font, and it's our favorite F word.
Fuck. Perfect gift. Perfect gift. But it's a good segue into 2024 of, I don't like resolutions. I think that resolutions hold expectations, and then when you don't have the ability to meet them, it's a huge letdown,
Mhm.
or you put a lot of pressure. But I kind of like to set like a dream board of 2024 of what I'm bringing into 2024, because we are in the year of our Lord 2024, of being like, okay, well, I'm going to set this as a goal.
Mhm.
Doesn't matter if I meet it. Doesn't matter if I even come close, but at least try, right? So
Yeah.
I'm going to try for it. And so for me, it's just kind of not caring what the consequences of what I say to other people around mediumship.
And not that this scares me at all.
Mm-mm, mm-mm.
Mm-mm.
But I'm going to do it classy. I'm not going to do it with like an aggressive nature, but I'm going to just say, like, I think people have their opinions about mediumship, right? And they have their opinions about the way they do it. And I'm okay with you doing with whatever you're going to do. But when it comes to compromising the integrity of it or hurting somebody, that's where I'm like, okay, you're not free without consequence.
Mm-hmm.
And I think owning part of my piece of the pie is standing up and advocating for mediumship, but also advocating for people who um, can't or they don't know any better. Because really, we can say whatever we want to, and then just say the spirit world said it. And a lot of the general public, because they don't know what real, actual mediumship is, they believe it.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think it takes away the miracle of it.
Yeah.
But it also hurts people. It hurts people.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
So
I really
fucks the give.
we actually had this conversation this morning, and I have a lot of different things that I'm kind of approaching 2024 with, but my biggest thing, I have a platform, whether it's on this
Mhm.
podcast or in social media or whatever, is empowerment. I think that there are so many areas of our life that we give our power away. And I want to empower people, whether they're people seeking readings of whatever type those are, seeking spirituality, um, or people seeking development. I want to empower people with knowledge. That's not to say I know everything, but I really want to empower people as much as possible. I also want to help people be more grounded in
Mhm.
their approach to things. I want people to demand more. I think that we are so quick to demand so little. And, I think we deserve better. Um, there was, I think the biggest lesson that I learned in 2023, and that's the biggest thing for me. I don't really do resolutions either. And I don't necessarily have more goals, but my, I really listen to my lessons, because if you don't learn from your lessons, you're bound to repeat them. Right. So it was trusting my gut. It was learning that what isn't for me and not staying what isn't for me. After I've learned it's not for me, like not staying at the party too long, um, and following my joy, following the things that resonate for me, following the things that light me up, and not doing less have tos in my life, because I feel like when we do that, everything falls into place. It's when we force things to fit when they no longer fit, or we force ourselves to do things because somebody tells us we have to. That's when we fall into really bad patterns in our life. And if there's anything that I can do, whether it's on this podcast or on social media or whatever, I just want to empower everybody to take their power back and start to trust themselves again. And especially, I'm speaking to all of you mediums out there. I think trusting ourselves, we've often talked about this in our development circles, but yes, we have to trust the spirit world when we're doing mediumship or whatever, but so often a medium's biggest struggle that they deal with is trusting themselves. And this all is just like a circular thing of like, the more that we trust ourselves, the more that we trust and follow what lights us up, the more that we're able to surrender and trust the spirit world and trust ourselves and give what we're getting. It just all flows together. And that's why we say that personal development and all of this goes hand in hand with mediumship development. So that's for me where I would like to focus everything for 2024. And I think in doing all that, that brings you closer to source. I think I
Mm-hmm.
just talked around in circles, but I hope that all made sense.
It did. So you talked about empowering mediums into trusting themselves, but what would you empower the general public with mediumship? Like, what's your first advice for that?
Well, there's also trusting your gut, right? I think that I also want to show them and teach them what is proper mediumship and what isn't. I think that I really want to educate on what cold reading is, what hot reading is. I really want to do a better job of telling them why we give a medium yes, no, or I don't know, giving them
Mm-hmm.
more information on like why you don't pre-give like your name and your address and the date of death and pictures of your loved one. I just want them to get the reading they deserve. And you and I say this all the time. Like, I think I'm a good medium. I think
Mm-hmm.
I'm constantly developing. I'm really stepping into even more deeper development this year for myself. But I know what I'm good at, and I know that I'm ethical, and I know that I stick by the rules. In I don't go fishing. I don't go like,
Mm-hmm.
if a sitter does give me something, I don't use it later down the reading. I kind of leave it where it is, or I build upon what they gave me with further evidence. You know, so I don't even hate on mediums that aren't fully developed, but not trying to get things from the sitter, and being a kind and nice person. Like, people deserve to be treated kindly. People deserve the very best when they're dealing in this sensitive state of grief. And again, it comes back to what I just said about like, we all deserve better.
Mm-hmm.
Whether
Right,
you're the
100%
medium
agree.
or the sitter or just a human being, like, I don't know where this self-sacrificial, like, I got to take care of everybody else before I take care of me, and putting everybody else before ourselves. Like, why do we deserve to be treated like shit? Why do we deserve the very least? Like, why not take care of ourselves and get the very
Mm-hmm.
best?
It's very interesting you say that, because I've been dealing with a couple things internally. I don't know. I'll bounce it off of you and tell me what you think. That I think a lot of the time in the past, it's not that I was afraid to give my opinion, but I almost felt like this humble place, that I had to stay in this humble place and like kind of live there. But now I'm kind of like, no, I got an opinion and I deserve to take up space in this opinion. And I have the education, the know how, the experience, and the understanding of what I'm talking about. And my opinion is valid. And I know this is going to sound really egoic, and I'm completely okay with it. I'm fine with that. I'm fine with that. Um, and it just kind of like, they deserve better. But I also deserve, I as a medium, deserve to be okay that I've spent a lot of money and time in my development.
Mm-hmm.
And my opinion is very valid. And it's very valid. And I'm not wrong when we're treating people in a certain way. Like you said, like, people deserve the best. And so I think, like, coming from the aspect, it really resonated with me. So I just wanted to say thank you for saying that. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
Yeah. Because I think people are afraid to take up space.
Ooh, yes.
Do you know what I mean? Like, especially in a healing modality. they're afraid to take up space, or they're afraid to offend somebody. Look, like there's no rules in spirituality. There's no. I was talking to a friend of ours about this. I'm like, there's no one to regulate this at all.
Mm-mm.
Like look at the Catholic Church. They have the Pope, right? And so when all else fails, they have the book, the Bible, or Judaism has the Quran and Torah and all that stuff. Like all the other religions have something. Spirituality in the New Age movement has nothing. They have no, like, if you're wrong, see plan B. So it's really the Wild West of TikTok, and not
It's the
saying that
Wild West of
I'm
spirituality. And
yeah.
before TikTok,
Hmm.
it's always been this way. Like you go
Yeah.
into any spiritual shop, you go into any development circle, even. Like, I mean, we keep it on the up and up here at Matt and Dana, but
Hmm.
and that's not to put our place in a pedestal, because there's other amazing development spaces out there,
Yes.
but there are wonky development spaces out there that, like, it's the wild west, and I feel
Mm.
like anytime you go into spiritual spaces, you can get into some wonky things. And I've talked about it for myself personally. I went into a spiritual space for a couple of years that I was doing some development in, that everything seemed really cool. It was a great place of community. It was like everybody, like, I actually have lifelong friends that I brought away from that space, but then everything went left, and all of a sudden there was light language, and there was like some activation codes, and there was some weird shit that started happening. So, and a lot of spiritual ego started showing up. So, you know it's
It's frustrating.
it's frustrating because staying but it comes back to like knowing when to leave the party.
Hmm.
Not all of these spaces are meant for you forever, and knowing like when times and places or groups of people or teachers or friendships or relationships or places of work. Like when we talk, we got to credit our good friend Megan Elisa for this, but everything is mediumship, right?
Hmm.
Where you work, if you're not feeling fulfilled in your workspace, if it's a toxic place, you got to leave it. All of these concepts trickle back to what we're talking about here. It just so happens in the spiritual spaces, I think it all gets exacerbated because the ego flourishes in these spiritual spaces. So everything gets put under a microscope, and it's like anything that like kind of hides under just normal life stuff in like a work environment and a social environment, like explodes and gets bigger in a spiritual environment.
My brain keeps wanting to go somewhere. And I'm going to take it there, and maybe you can make sense of what I'm trying to get to. I might need some Tina Willie help. It's almost like, when you leave a little kid alone and they're just playing imagination, and they're probably not growing up in the best environment, and then they go to this faraway land in their mental space, and that everything becomes magical. And it almost becomes detachment, that they don't have a realistic view of the world. And so then you bring them into a situation where they need to survive, and all they know is that escapism and that wonder. I think that's where a lot of the spiritual community goes, because they're all just injured children, right? And they're just trying to make it home, and we all are, right? So
Mhm.
I can't say anything. I'm no better. I have a pink Barbie room, so fuck it. But I think that there is a little bit of the spiritual community not knowing what is imagination and what is reality and what is spirit.
Yes. Or the escapism of it, right? Like
Hmm.
you had mentioned the escapism. I think a lot of people, you and I have preached the why forever, and it's something we constantly work with our students on. What is your why? And we know that
Hmm.
our why can shift and change. But the why of why people seek spirituality, why they might even seek a mediumship reading or a psychic reading or development, sometimes is because they're broken inside or they feel broken. I don't want to call anybody broken because nobody's broken, but you feel broken, or you're struggling in life, or you're looking for answers. And when you go into that fantasy land, or you're looking for a magic pill, or do this, you get this activation code and you're going to be just fine, or somebody speaks light language to you and you're all better. I think it's that ungrounded, like that stuff without evidence, without any kind of experiential thing that happens, that's where that gets that takes off, right?
Yeah.
And then you also have the placebo effect, right? Of like, if somebody does something, here's I'm just going to say this, like, let's say somebody is using light language, like they're like, you
Yeah.
feel sad, I'm going to speak light language at you. Now, we know that there are tones that can affect certain chakras of our body, right? At a certain megahertz, like it can affect our heart chakra or whatever. And people doing light language may hit certain tones or whatever. So we might feel like a little something in our heart chakra or something. Let's just say that we might be feeling something. And we have a placebo effect because we're like, oh, this is really making an effect on me. So you have this, like, maybe there's something there energetically just because they're hitting a certain tone. And then there's the placebo effect of like, this is really working. And then you buy into it because you got a little something from it, right? And then you keep buying into it, buying into it, buying into it, chasing the dragon, as you and I like to talk about, of like, we're chasing that good feeling. Like maybe we had one good experience and maybe that was that first good experience, or we see other people getting these great experiences. I want that too. That's why cults happen, right? Everybody's chasing that experience that somebody else had, or whatever. It's like that twin flames universe. Like there's this idea in the spiritual world, like, you will be complete when you find your twin flame. That's bullshit. There's nothing that's going to complete you except you. Right? So everybody's telling you got to find your twin flame, you got to find your twin flame, you got to find your twin flame. And so they start spending money, they start doing this. They're disassociating from reality. They are that child playing in a fantasy land, putting all of their value, all of their beliefs into this fantasy paradigm that if they do X, then Z will happen, but it never does.
And they don't realize that their twin flame is within themselves.
They're everything, all of our fulfillment is always within ourselves. So many people are hurting and we're looking for fulfillment outside of ourselves all the time.
But I also get, like, hugs are nice,
Of
right? And affection
course.
is nice, and attention is nice, and that's what they're looking for, a majority of it. But a lot of cults start from self-help, and it just takes one charismatic person. But if you look at a lot of people, like cult leaders, a lot of them start off charismatic and then manipulate, but they always have the traits of a parent. So it'll be a lot similar to, like, there'll be this like power dynamic between like a parent and a teacher, or a guru and a student, right? I think a good spiritual leader does not need to give you the answers or say they have all the answers. They just provide the path for you to walk it yourself.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of what I see in this community is a lot of, I need to activate you. Where the fuck are you getting your code from, sir? What makes you so special that you're getting a code above everybody else? You can barely shave.
Right.
Explain to me how you're getting an activation code. And it just like leads me down to this. I get very frustrated when it comes to this, because it's like, where did that come from? Research that activation code. That sounds very machine wise, right? And then it gets all linked to the Matrix. And dude, the Matrix came out in 1994. Where was your religion before computers existed?
Yeah.
Right? And there's so many questions that unravel and they just can't answer them. And it gets me really frustrated because we're essentially degrading people by saying they're NPCs, non-playable characters, and taking their empathy away. So if something was to happen to somebody else, our sensitivity to watching somebody get hurt is gone, because they're like, well, that's just a digital character.
Yeah.
Right?
I want to talk about two things here, because there's going back to completing ourselves, because first off, like we are human beings, like We are social creatures, and human
Mm-hmm.
connection is important as human beings. But it's always important that we fill our own cup first. And you and I have had this
Yes.
conversation. There is a difference between want and need. And you and I have
Mm-hmm.
both said this, like, I want you in my life, Matt. I don't need you in my life. I want you in my
Mm-hmm.
life. There is a difference between those two energies, right? And I don't need you to complete me. I don't need my husband to complete me. I want you in my life. I want my husband in my life. Those are the things that are the difference of when we are looking for somebody to complete us, or we are looking for that fulfillment outside of ourselves. It's a
Well,
gift with purchase, right?
let's just say what it really is. It's codependency.
Exactly. Exactly. So whenever, or even if we are looking for, have you ever received a compliment that like came to you and bounced right off of you because
Mm-hmm.
you just couldn't accept it because you don't believe in it yourself?
Exactly. Somebody said my butt looked good once, and I was like, this spot thing.
But we can't absorb somebody else's nice words about us until we actually believe them ourselves.
Mm-hmm.
So, you can say XYZ about me, but until I believe it myself, that compliment is going to bounce right off of me. I'm not going to be able to absorb it until I know and believe it for myself. That's why nobody will ever be able to complete you. That's why,
Mm-hmm.
you have to complete yourself. So that was just the full circle on that.
Well, I like to live in a place of like we are two different planets and we're just orbiting each other, right? And I was fine before you, and I'll be fine after you. And I think that's where people take away, like they give away their power, is when
Hmm.
they meet somebody that dominates them and don't realize you'll be fine. You are fine. Like I was fine 36 years before you, and I'll be fine another 36. But taking what I've learned in our relationship forward, and taking what I like and what I don't like, but not giving away my power of being like, it's the end of the world if you're not in it.
Hmm.
Right. Right. And I think understanding that everybody has an independence and we have each other, we each have a strength. And it doesn't mean that just because you're not in my life, I'm weak.
Hmm.
And that's, I think, where we're giving away our power too much to other people and to other ideals and not sticking true to the core foundation of who we are. Now, before you, it might have been rocky, but I've learned a lot. Right, I've learned a lot of things that I can take forward into my future, and understanding that you've made me a better person, but we're still too independent.
Hmm.
We're two independent planets just rotating around the sun, my friend. And it doesn't mean that we need to be attached. And I think a lot of people look at this attachment of being like, I need this activation code to be attached to be a stronger person. No, you had that activation code the entire time.
Well, but it comes down to, that codependency thing, right? Does a person in your life enhance your life, or does it distract from it? And again, it's following that joy. Do you feel after you've spent time with somebody that your cup is fuller after spending
Mm-hmm.
time with them, or do you feel depleted? And paying attention to that, because again, it's like, when is it time to leave the party? And it's not any shame on any kind of relationship or friendship or development place or workplace or anything. Sometimes people drift apart. Sometimes things happen. And no, we're not breaking up. Matt and I aren't breaking
No,
up. It sounds like we're
no.
planning our breakup, but no, we're not.
Sorry, kids, we need to sit you down. We have bad news. Mom and dad are breaking up. No,
but
you're right.
but
You're
I think,
100% right.
like, people should remain in your orbit, if we're going to use your planet analogy, for as long as it benefits both parties and enhances both people's lives. And
Hmm.
it shouldn't, but it shouldn't be codependent upon one another. It should enhance. Again, it should be gift with purchase, right? Um,
Hmm.
but I want to go a little go back to like the activation codes. Where did this come from? Because this is something that's been irking me a lot. And new year, new woo, right? These are
Mm-hmm.
new laws for me when it comes to spiritual concepts, spiritual things. Know your history, guys. Like, this is what I'm going to start demanding of the spiritual community. If you are going to use terms, if you are going to start using words, if you're going to say, I'm doing XYZ, I want you to be educated on it. There's no reason why you should know the history of what you're talking about. And I'm not calling anything out, but like I did a post like a little while ago, and I know like other friends get this all the time, where you get the people like, you need to find Jesus. Like, how do you presume that I haven't? And like, like, you're
Was he
presuming a
missing?
lot, right? Like, but like, and then you say like, or they're like, you're talking to demons, and I'm like, where's your evidence of that? And they're like, it says in the Bible. And I was like, where does it say it in the Bible? And they can't quote it. If you don't, you should know your religion. If you're quoting a Bible, you should know the Bible. If you are saying you're doing something, if you're saying you're ascending, you should know what you're ascending to. If you're saying that I'm being awoken, what are you being awoken to? I think there's so much jargon out there and so many things that are just being said, and so many religions and forms of thought that we're regurgitating.
Mm-hmm.
You should be able to speak on whatever the hell that you're preaching upon. Otherwise, you should.
Yeah. But I think the more you discover things, the more that you unravel things. I learned a lot about the New Age movement, and I learned a lot that it has deep seed rooted things in taking other people's religions and whitewashing them.
Mhm.
I also learned that there's a lot of racism
Oh, yeah.
and white supremacy in New Age beliefs, and I think people overlook that, or they don't realize it. But then when they say ascended masters, that actually comes from hooded white figures from the Great White North. And so it's like understanding, well, where does that come from? Okay, well, it came from Peru, and like starting to dig deep. And then you realize that this is practice is only like 30, 50, 40 years old, and we can't say that it's been figured out. And it's not to say that certain religions that have been around hundreds of years don't have the same credibility. But if your religion is uh, written by somebody that has a world record for the most science fiction, like in the Guinness Book of World Records, there should be some alarms going off of being like, proof, or like, I need more validity, I need more research, and keeping an open mind. Because look, people can take things and say things and take ideas from other things, like the Matrix, and bring it into a religious aspect, and then it becomes part of the cultural fabric, the societal pop culture standard, and then they take it and it means something else.
Mhm.
But finding the true origin of what you're talking about. Now, with the light language, I did ask somebody that does light language where it came from, and they couldn't answer it, but they could definitely do a channeled message to tell me where it came from, and they weren't channeling. And so it's just like you get this runaround, and it's not that I'm trying to find out where it comes from, being like, aha, but it's more like an understanding of being like, well, if we're telling this and I'm in this community and I'm doing this work, I have no fucking clue what you're talking about or where it came from, what is the general public thinking, right? So I'm more coming from a public space of being like, are we using terms that sound harmful? Are we using terms that can be bastardized or not understood? Because if Joan, the lady that wants to walk in day one and learn light language and light codes, and you don't know where it's coming from, what are we teaching her?
Mhm.
What are we teaching her? Because Joan might take that and do something else with it. And I know we can't control what Joan does, but as an educator, we can empower people in the right direction of being like, mediumship movement started in the 1800s in Hydesville, New York, and it traced back to here, and it's been here, 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 and here, and it just makes it more rich and more understanding that you know what you're talking about and having the understanding. There's terms for 2024 that I'm just going to start falling in love with, and the word understanding is one of them. You can talk about a subject, but if you don't have an understanding of it, you don't have enough to be proficient to be an expert on it. And I think that's what I'm seeing a lot of the community not having the understanding. They don't have the understanding. They can regurgitate information, but they don't have the understanding of what it is.
Yep.
And no matter what they say to me of being like, I have the understanding, clearly you don't. You don't have the understanding of the why of the mediumship mechanics that you're trying to teach, but you have no experience in it yourself. So I've broken down, and I stole this from Starbucks once again, learning, owning, and advising. So if I'm learning light language, I'm learning it. I'm not a proficient in it. I'm not enough. I'm going to give myself mistakes to not maybe say my vowels correctly in my light language. I don't know. I don't know light language, but I'm not going to say that I can turn around and teach it. Owning would actively be like, okay, I have an understanding of it. I'm getting comfortable as I'm doing it. I'm starting to get downloads, and I'm not feeling like I'm making as many mistakes or I feel like something's happening. But like advising would be like, I'm a master at this and I can actually replicate this light language to cause this activation code to happen every single time I do it with results that are trackable. And I can turn around and teach Dana how to do this and replicate the same exact thing over and over and over again. And that's what makes a phenomenal teacher or a mentor or a guru or whatever you want to call them at the end of the day, is somebody that can take those results, know the why, and duplicate it over and over and over again with the same consistent results. Right?
Yep.
We have, so going into your point of like not settling for less, I think also going into it from a teacher standpoint of being like, if you don't know what you're doing, don't turn around and teach it. Because I think a lot of people look at, like, I'm going to use our circle just for an instance. They come to a circle like ours, they see how many people are in the circle, and they know what they've paid. And they're not doing the fact of, okay, this student's here, this student's here. I know exactly what this person needs to work on. I understand the power and blah, blah, blah. They're going 20, 40, 60, 80, 100. Oh my God, I can walk out in a development circle and make $600, but they don't realize how hard it is to run a circle, or having to meet people where they're at, or have an understanding of the power or understanding of connection and how to do that. And so it's a conglomerate of the understanding. Do you have an understanding? And I can tell you, and this is where what I was talking about earlier of being like, my opinion matters and like a value of just straight up being like, you don't have an understanding of this and you're regurgitating other people's information, and this is how. And it's not that I'm doing that to like regulate or to police, but it's calling people out of being like, you can only take people as far as you know. And there's going to be a point where if you're regurgitating somebody else or something that you've learned from somebody else, but you don't have the understanding of the why, you're going to damage people. And you're going to have to like, you have to really understand that you're damaging people's growth. You're damaging people's learning abilities. And it really is bad. It can go very, very bad. And it takes people almost years to unlearn certain things. And you may have had that good intention to be like, okay, well, I'm going to go in and teach you how to dual link. And I'm teaching you the improper way because I don't know how to do it myself, but I've done it once or twice and I'm not advising in it. But I'm going to teach you how to do it, Dana. Get ready. Okay, boom. And I'm teaching you the wrong way, and you're not having consistent results every single time. And then you're going back and having to unlearn those habits every single time. I think me and you, since we're mentors and we ran like that dynamic mentorship experience, we've had to actually take people to almost foundational levels who have been developing for years. And I don't look at it as a shame on them as the medium. I look at it as almost like nobody empowered you with the actual foundation to your home. And you poor little soul have been running around thinking that what you're doing is actually mediumship, but it's been confused with something else, or you don't have the foundation to relink, or whatever it is that you're missing from the foundation of your home, because people are going out and they're doing things in some sort of fucking rush. And it's know where you are. I think we're all students of the spirit world. We're all teachers of the spirit, but we're all having to just kind of slow the fuck down. Slow the fuck down. Like, if you're doing it for money, it's only going to last you so long, and your circle is going to be like 3 weeks long, and you're going to burn the fuck out.
Well, it's always so funny to me. Like everybody's like, I want to teach. I want to run a circle. Like I will tell you and I know I'm speaking for you, Matt, because I know your heart
Yeah.
is in the same place. Teaching is such a fulfilling and beautiful thing. It is something that I enjoy so deeply.
Mm-hmm.
And it's nothing that Spirit called me to that work. Like if you would have told me that I would have been a teacher in this area or a teacher of any type of anything, I would have laughed in your face. I did
Mm-hmm.
not like I fell into this so hard. I never intended on doing this at all, ever, ever, ever. It fulfills me on such a deep level. I'm going to even say it fulfills me more than just doing plain old mediumship, like mediumship readings. Like working with students fulfills me on such a deep, deep level, and I love it.
Mm-hmm.
That being said, it is a very difficult job. You are dealing with multiple people at the same time. You have to create curriculum. You are, like you said, you have to know that, like, okay, I'm dealing with person A and they need this kind of direction, but person B is already there, but they need this, and like creating exercises and challenges to meet everybody where they're at, um, making everybody feel safe. And, there's a lot that goes into it. It's not like we just open a Zoom room and wing it. There's a lot,
Mm-hmm.
like Matt and I work all day Sundays, really putting a lot of work and background into like what we're doing. And so that's where I'm like, yeah, everybody wants to run a practice circle or a development circle or teach a class, but they don't understand how much heart it takes. It's not easy. There are times where it's like, whoo, shit, that was a tough one tonight.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and it's hard. It's hard, but I love it
It's
more
worth
than
it.
anything.
It's worth it. But it's also walking away knowing that your students are set up for success, that they can speak to their own journey
Hmm.
and they're able to go back in. And I know we've had students with us for years and it's been
From day
fantastic
one,
to
from
watch
our
them grow.
first circle.
Hmm. But they're able to speak to what they're doing and they have the understanding of where they're at. Now, like you, I can speak for you on this. Like, I don't know everything. I don't expect to know everything, and I can only, like I said earlier, take you as far as I know.
Mhm.
But I think looking at a teacher that's further developing themselves and always continuously being like, "Oh, try this! Like this just happened to me. I've replicated a couple times. Like try this, lean into this. Okay, how did that feel for you? Like collaborating with your students, like digging in. That's how you learn." In moments of teaching your students, but it's also not just being like, well, I'm the master and you need to listen to me, because that stunts you.
Mhm.
Like the teacher, as we're always students, we're always students. There's no teacher that should ever say I have this all figured out,
No.
because they don't. They have their own little point of view figured out, but the understanding of the material, please. So 2024 is a year of understanding. I also have another 2024. Do you want to hear it?
Yes.
Listen more, speak less
Hmm.
in the spiritual community. Whys, man. We talk a lot about the why. I think if you really just watch and listen, you'll figure out people's whys very quickly. And I think that we get so enthralled because it's so magical that we don't like go, ooh, why? Because people will tell on themselves
Hmm.
all the time, and not in a bad way. I think sometimes people can tell on themselves in a good way, right? But kind of like navigating discernment to find out if either a reader is right for you or if their intentions align with their actions, if a teacher's right for you, if the class is right for you, if you feel circled, like checking in with yourself of being like, what did I hear and what am I seeing? And are they matching? Right? There needs to be a lot of discernment. But you know how we were talking about this being like a lawless land
Hmm.
of mystical, magical woo woo? That's the law. It's been there the whole time, but we don't trust ourselves, like you said earlier. We don't check in with ourselves. We give our power away. But if we just sat back more, talked less and listened without having to respond, but really truly listened to the words that people are saying, you'll find consistencies and inconsistencies very quickly, whether it be right for you or not. So 2024 is the year of speak less, listen more, and find that discernment.
And I'm going to
Trust
say,
yourself.
add to that and watch. Do
Watch.
the words match what you're seeing? Because
Mhm.
people will talk and say, like, tell you what you want to hear, but do their actions match what
Mhm.
they're telling you?
Right.
And put that all together before you just willingly like believe or trust somebody. I think that that's really important.
And much like a mediumship reading, your mediumship development, you deserve the best. And it can be the best for you right now. It can be the best for you in 5 years. It can be a goal of yours. So whether you develop with us or our friends' school or somebody else's school, you deserve the best, and you deserve that because your soul and your spiritual journey is very precious, and it's something that you won't get back at the end of the day. It's not like you can have like a do-over. It was part of your story and your journey, but if you just slow down and listen more, and if like, does it resonate with you? And just because somebody's saying something doesn't mean that you need to buy into it. You can take a little bit from this. I mean, look, new age concepts are taken from everybody else, right? You can take from a little bit from point A and point B and find your truth. And that's fine. You can have your own truth, but it's your truth. It is not the land for every single person in the spiritual community. But you have a value and a point of view, and you deserve to stand on your own 2 feet and voice that opinion, regardless of what anybody says. I get a lot of pushback for that because they're like, you're policing me. No, I have the right to use my voice just as much as you have a right to do your practice. I have the right to use my voice, and my voice and your practice have the equal weight. And it doesn't mean that I am policing you or being a spiritual bigot or whatever you're going to say. It means that you can do whatever you want to do. And I can say in response, that doesn't resonate with me, and here's why. And just like they can do that with me, right? And it's a respect level of being like, we can agree to disagree, we can hold space for other things, but I'm going to provide questions. Can you answer them?
I have one more thing to add for this year. And I was
Go
inspired by
boo.
your slow down. Slow down and be present.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I think going back to, we had talked about escapism and not seeking escapism and all of that, but the more that we can slow down and be present, you know, this is oversimplifying what depression and anxiety is, but depression is when we think about, worry about the past. Anxiety is when we worry about the future. That's discounting mental illness and like anxiety disorders and different things. But if you think about that, the more that we can be present and be in this moment and slow down, I think as a society, we're go, 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 do. There's so many devices, there's so many things going on all the time. Where in your life can you slow down? Where can you relish the beautifulness of life? Whether it's time with a friend, that you're having a phone conversation with them, or you're eating your favorite meal, whatever that might be, and savoring that bite, or even just like standing in the shower and feeling the water beat against your back. Where can you start to be present in this moment, in your body? And even right now, as you're listening to this, taking a nice deep breath in and feeling that breath in your body and being present right now. What a gift. What an amazing moment, no matter what you're going through in your life. What a gift that we are blessed with this day, with this moment, with this second. And the more that you just live in that and know that everything is possible from here on out, follow your joy. From every second, you have a new possibility, a new choice. Follow that joy and be present.
That's beautiful.
Kumbaya fucking ya.
Makes me want to sing, the sun will come out tomorrow.
Please don't sing. You ruined it.
But no, that is beautiful. You know what? I have a challenge for the listeners for the month of January. or they can take it as long as they want. How about making this a year of sitting with spirit and truly sitting with and building that relationship with yourself and the spirit world yourself with nobody's guidance on it, but really kind of taking time, whether it be 5 minutes, an hour a day, an hour a week, whatever it is, that time committing to just finding your truth with your relationship with the spirit world. And it can just be just sitting in silence. Like, you don't need to do anything. It's really just simple. We overcomplicate this so fucking much. But if we just got back to basics and we just kind of sat with spirit, you'd find your truth very quickly.
There is, I love great teachers. I love great mentors. I think that there's so much that we can learn and grow from others, but nothing will help you learn and grow more than you just sitting with the spirit world. And there's no gateway, there's nothing you need to do to gain access to that. It's all right here, it's there for you right now. So you are worth it. I think if you take anything from this podcast today, you were worth it. You are powerful. You have access to everything that you need. And, hopefully this is a free resource for you guys. We will continue creating. We've dedicated, Matt and I have dedicated to create more consistent episodes in 2024. We're going to try to have more fun. So watch out.
Rant over. See, 2024 is the year of laughs, bitch.
Yes. Yeah. And ranting.
Can I also just say this, though? I want to thank all the listeners for vacuuming across America, because I saw vacuums coming out and people actually doing it. So thank you. I see it real nice. You do a real good job.
Real good job vacuuming, everybody. But honestly, thank you to all of our watchers and listeners. And thank you for being on this journey with us. We're looking forward to a fun 2024 with you guys. So
shake it
with
up.
that, you are the light of like all the firecrackers that go off on not 4th of July. Well, if you're listening to this in July, you're that light too, but like firecrackers.
You are the light of 100,000 illuminated palm trees. You are the light.
There you go. We'll see you guys next time.
Bye. Get out of here. I'm tired of your stuff. Take all your crap. Hey, Dana, when I take off my hat and I have my blanket on my lap, I look like Professor Xavier.
Is there anything else in your room that you can make pinker?
Just me.